Well, howdy do, everybody. This is the Friends of Zeus podcast. Unfortunately, Zeus can't be here today. He had a alligator attack him, and he is out of commission for a little while.
I wondered what happened.
Yeah, well, we wish him the best. I'm working with the squeaky chair tonight, so
Nice.
sorry about that in advance. So Friends of Zeus podcast, you can see us on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher.
We have a Facebook presence.
We have a Facebook presence, and we'll talk about Facebook a little bit today too, probably. So getting right into it, because we may be working on limited time here this evening. The topic of tonight is sort of a drill down on a topic we do pretty much every show, and that's like media and its influence on our culture and society, but in particular, 4 recent things that have really ratcheted up. I don't really know what to call it, but just the complete dereliction of duty on the part of our media to report facts and not act as a narrative driving propaganda arm of a certain party. And those events are 3 Supreme Court decisions that recently came out, and also January 6th show trial that's going on currently. So before we get to that, we've got myself, I'm Michael, we've got Tom and Desiree joining us, and Jack as well. And so again, we talk about this, we touch on this topic a lot. It's kind of a recurring thing, but lately with the recent Roe versus Wade decision that came down last week with Judge Clarence Thomas writing the majority opinion.
He wrote the concurrent, actually. He didn't.
Oh.
I think it was.
I thought Clarence Thomas wrote the.
No, majority. He wrote a concurrent opinion.
Oh, Alito.
Alito,
yeah. Alito wrote the majority. So, I mean, I think, this decision or a draft of it was leaked back in May. Of course, we still have no idea officially who did that, and who knows if there's going to be any repercussions for that. No. And that's a whole other conversation about what that meant. But I think everyone kind of knew that this was going to be a disruptive story, a disruptive situation, that people have strong feelings on all sides. And I really don't want to get into a discussion of Roe versus Wade, whether it's right or not. We've kind of done that.
We have done that.
Yeah, I think what's alarming to me, and I see this all the time, and the fact that I'm alarmed kind of freaks me out, is just the total over-the-top counterfactual reporting on what this ruling means, what it says, what the consequences are, and what it means for all of us, as citizens in this country. If you've turned on pretty much any media, it's been, this is the end of democracy, the court's illegitimate. We have Congress people calling for people to get in the streets. We have justices that have been being threatened, with protests and even more, attempted murder. And there's certain things like, protesting against whatever your opinion is. Going to a Supreme Court justice's home and marching is against federal law. It just is. And of course, DOJ is not prosecuting anyone for that whatsoever. Threatening Supreme Court justices is also not allowed. No one's doing anything about that. But the reporting that this decision that came down, which essentially what it said in its core was, it said the Supreme Court basically said, we do not have the power to regulate abortion. This is a state issue. Roe, when it was written in 1973 by Judge Blackmun, was on unstable footing from the get-go. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has said that. People who are intellectually honest and have talked about it have discussed this. And yet, when this ruling came down, it was all of a sudden like Armageddon. There's been this, you want to talk about a big lie, this perception that it is impossible to get an abortion in the United States as of today is erroneous. Over half the states allow abortion. Actually, more than half the states allow abortion right now, but there are about 26, I think, that have trigger laws that will be going into effect. But, I've heard everything from, Macron in France and Boris Johnson and the head of Spain and all these European countries looking down their nose saying how appalling this is. When in pretty much throughout Europe, I think the latest you can have an abortion is 15 weeks. Well, in the United States, the latest you can have an abortion is 40 weeks in a lot of states at the moment. And again, this idea that Roe versus Wade was just overturned, we left Roe v. Wade in the dust 20 years ago, 30 years ago now, with the Casey decision, which changed everything from being measured by what trimester you were in to viability of the baby, of the fetus, of whatever you want to call it. So when Roe v. Wade came down, basically in a nutshell, and this is like a thumbnail, it basically said in the first trimester, it's the individual's right to do whatever they want to do. If it's in the second trimester, individual states can come in and make laws that they see fit. In the third trimester, the federal government has an interest, and it was not allowed. In 92, the Casey ruling, basically that's when Roe was overturned, because Casey in 92 based it on viability and said basically the argument was being made that even when a baby is born, it can't survive on its own. And this is where we came up with what we call partial birth abortion, or abortions that are performed during birth or immediately preceding birth at full term. Again, no one ever discusses it that way. I mean, nobody ever says, I support, abortion all the way up to 40 weeks, because the majority of people think that's abhorrent. So we've got this situation where if you look at what's being reported and what people are seeing on TV, they're getting this completely distorted picture of like what's actually going on. And there is this stoking of emotions. This is a very emotional issue, towards violence, pushing people towards, basically, getting back to Facebook we were talking about. I'm not personally on Facebook. There's, our show is, and there's people and friends of mine that are on Facebook. There's people like telling people to unfriend them, like if they disagree with them on certain things. I mean, it's uncivil, really. It's just completely crazy. Anyway, the other issues were the New York concealed carry decision that came down. Again, you turn on the media, you hear like, well, in one breath, the Supreme Court said that it's up to the states to decide about abortion, but they're hypocritical because they're saying that the states can't decide about the Second Amendment rights. Well, the Second Amendment's in the Bill of Rights, it's in the Constitution, abortion isn't. Again, the perspective that they leave out, that it's crucially important if you want to actually understand what's going on. The one that came down, I think just yesterday or today, which I didn't even know about, it's amazing, the coach in Texas, who was kneeling for prayers on the 50-yard line after games, was fired back in 2015. Basically the case that was being made by the school district was that it was going against the Establishment Clause, what he was doing, establishing religion. And again, this whole concept of like, separation between church and state, it is that the state cannot establish a religion. It does not say that people cannot practice their religion in public or even in a public building. You can practice your religion wherever you see fit. It's free speech. And then fourthly, this January 6th trial, which is just, it's so, again, I'm taking whatever your opinion is about it. If you hate Trump, if you love Trump, what is going on right now is not only stupid, it's provocative, it's dangerous. You've got Congress people on television I see today who are basically calling for the indictment of a former president based on a pseudo trial that's being presented as, I feel like I'm watching Network or something, that's being presented on TV, on NPR, with our tax dollars. It's being presented as though it's like a trial when there's zero cross-examination, there's no exculpatory evidence being presented, there's no one's allowed to ask questions. You're basically seeing, it's like watching the people's court and the plaintiff is talking and then Judge Wapner's like, okay, I'm gonna rule before even hearing from the defendant. And then that's bad enough, but the media, and I really listened very carefully today, especially CNN and NPR, especially NPR in the 5 o'clock hour, were reporting this testimony from this woman who was a assistant to Meadows as though it was factual. This is hearsay. She heard this from somebody else. There were 2 Secret Service agents in the car. Again, this incredibly ridiculous story, which I just don't believe, because I don't believe anything the media says anymore about how the president reached and tried to grab the wheel of the limousine.
I heard that.
Like, how is he supposed to do that from the back seat? Like, he put his hands on the Secret Service guy's throat. Whatever. There's 2 Secret Service agents in the car. We haven't heard from them. They did testify in front of the January 6th committee. If there was someone in that hearing room today that had any intellectual honesty, they would say, well, can we see the testimony from these 2 Secret Service agents? Because if this lady's saying it happened, you got to put these guys under oath, right?
Was she in the car?
No, she heard about it from someone else. This is hearsay.
Okay.
She wasn't in the car.
I didn't watch it, so
She was not in the car. Did you hear that she was in the car?
No, I'm just asking.
No, she was not in the car. She heard about it. It was overheard. So my point is, NPR was going full tilt boogie on this about it being like, you know, this changes the whole thing. This goes from Trump didn't know, didn't understand what was going on, to where he was like fully involved and wanted to go to the Capitol. And, you know, this whole situation of like, he wanted,
you can't indict somebody. So he just, even if it's true, let's say that he wanted to grab the wheel. What can you make out of that?
No, I know, but
is he trying to turn around to go to the Capitol to stop it, or who knows?
Again, and Tom, you're right. The whole thing is, what's going on?
Not a crime.
It's not a crime for one. But
turn the car around.
It doesn't need to be. What?
Turn the car around.
It's not a crime to turn the car around.
It's not a crime.
But what's going on right now? The Congress of the United States cannot hold a trial. Okay, that's not what their job is. Everything that they do, these hearings that you always see through your whole life, they all have to have a legislative purpose. They all have to. The end result needs to be Congress is being informed. They're finding out information because they need the right legislation. That is not what is going on here. They are building a case. They are working with the DOJ. The DOJ is actively pursuing a grand jury indictment against Trump right now, and they are denying it. They've been asked point blank. They're denying it. There has been I'm trying to remember exact circumstance. Oh, it was someone who was tangentially related to the Trump administration. I can't remember his name. I'll remember it in a minute. But basically his phone, he was recently, his house was raided and the feds took his phone, and they are cracking into that phone and getting information off of it. The only way you can get that is with a warrant. And the only person that can sign a federal warrant like that is the Attorney General. So the DOJ is conducting a grand jury against Trump at this moment, and they're doing it on the sly, and they're denying it and being asked. And this January 6th committee is being used to bring people in, put them under oath, and have them testify in a situation which legally is not a trial, but what testimony could be used by this grand jury in a trial. And the other dishonest thing that's going on is you have these people like Mike Flynn and Meadows, and who else has been pleading the fifth? All these guys pleading the fifth because the jig is up, and they know that this testimony is going to be used by a grand jury, so they're pleading the fifth. And then the January 6th committee has the audacity to say, oh, they're taking the Fifth Amendment, must mean they're really guilty, and they're denying that. It's just completely. And if we had an honest, actual media in this country, I'm just a guy, I work in remodeling, and I can see this. If we had an actual press in this country that would ask questions and dive into this, the press is supposed to inform people so that people can make informed decisions. That is not what we have. We are in such dangerous territory. If you have a former president who is likely to run for president again get indicted. We've never seen that in this country. That is not, that is
what we have, if I can chime in, is it's an activist media. We have activist lawyers, activist judges, and activist reporters and media. And the woman that's replacing Rachel Maddow, I forget her name right now, but basically her resume is that she's an activist. And that's why they're going to put her on the air to replace Maddow. This is what they're looking for. They want people that, so, I mean, where does this end? What if we have activist doctors? Are they going to like let somebody die because they disagree with their politics?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
no, and I mean, with the media and that lady that's replacing Maddow, I mean, you've got pretty much name anyone in media, right? Any of the big names. There is a revolving door between politics and the media. These people they go into politics, they come out of politics, they go into the media. These people, George Stephanopoulos did not go to journalism school. He's not a journalist. All the people that you see on cable news, Lester Holt, David Muir, these are not journalists. These are not journalists. Don Lemon, not a journalist. I don't care what they say they are, but they're not that, and they're representing themselves that way. And it's one thing to disagree with someone or have someone frame things a certain way or bias. I mean, like Bernie Goldberg wrote that great book Bias about CBS News like 15 years ago, which was like opened my eyes big time, maybe 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah, it's like 20 years ago. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, that's like Snow White. That's like a Disney movie right now compared to what's going on. I mean, they left that stuff in the dust. It is flat out 100% lying right through the camera, propaganda, shoving it down the throats as much as they can, deny, shut down people that disagree, deplatform people. It come up with the most outrageous insults and slanderous things. I mean, it is crazy what's going on. And when it's to the point where you have a branch of the government, the Congress, and you have, a leader of the House of Representatives that's basically saying the Supreme Court is illegitimate. I mean, this didn't used to happen. We are in uncharted.
Because illegitimate, why?
Because they disagree with the outcome. They're all outcome based. Here's the thing, and there's a guy, he's still on the air up in Baltimore, named Clarence Mitchell. And he was a politician, he became a radio guy, I don't know, 15 years ago, probably a little bit more than that. And he's like the fourth generation of the Mitchell family in Baltimore, and they are like gold. They are like a established Baltimore political dynasty. Everyone knows them. They've all been politicians. Anyway, he got out of it. He's a little more conservative than the rest of his family. But he used to preach about the fact that process is king. Everything has to be about process, because if you run a government, if you're in the legislature, whether it's state's legislature, federal legislature, whatever, and you're just going for an outcome and the ends justify the means, and you throw process overboard, that's anarchy. I mean, that's where it leads to. And it's always been, politics ain't beanbag. People get elbows. It can be blood sport at times. That's one thing, but not only the gloves are off, the knives are out now. I mean, we are throwing process overboard. You have a Supreme Court, and I have not read Alito's decision. I've read parts of it, and I've had parts of it read to me. And it's well considered. These guys know way more about the Constitution than I do, but I know enough. That's the nice thing about the Constitution. You don't have to be a Supreme Court justice. It's written in pretty clear English for anyone to understand. But he lays out his entire argument, and you turn on the TV and you get like, this is the end of democracy. The court's illegitimate. I mean, they don't even get in to trying to explain it to people of like, okay, what is the reasoning behind this? Like, let's talk, if you don't like the reasoning, let's talk about that. We talk about interpreting the Constitution. We call it interpreting. There's different interpretations of certain things. That's fine. But to just say like, this guy that's been nominated to the Supreme Court, he's been on the bench for a couple of decades now, he's a moron? Like, he doesn't know what he's talking about? I mean, and the fact that they say that it's destroying democracy when this entire decision is the exact opposite of that. It's giving the individual
Sending it
more
back to the
power.
states. Yeah.
Right. When Jack, when you and Des and Tom and myself, when we vote on a federal level, our amount of power is like this much. But when we vote in our state elections, our power is like that much because we're one of a fewer number of people. So if anything, it's given more power back to the people.
I think the dangerous part is like, I think, didn't Maxine Waters say to hell with the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
And people are pointing out, well, the Supreme Court doesn't have the ability to enforce any of this. It's those kinds of statements to me, that's more, if you want to talk about end of democracy, those are the dangerous statements.
Yep.
Yeah.
You want to talk about like insurgency. And the thing is, the Supreme Court is basically saying, we don't have the power to decide this. It has to go back to the states. And, you know, and again, like the New York concealed carry is a very simple situation. So states are allowed to regulate gun purchases. And they do that by saying, okay, here's the rules. You have to be whatever. You have to be a citizen. You can't have a felony on your record. You can't be charged with illicit drug possession, whatever. Whole laundry list, you know. Can't have blue hair, whatever they want to come up with. And if you pass that, if you meet those standards, then you are to have a permit issued and you're allowed to purchase a weapon. What New York is saying is, and Maryland and a few other states, they're saying like, well, you have to show a cause, you know, it has to be justified. And the person you have to justify it to is someone that's in the state police, some unelected bureaucrat somewhere, a judge somewhere, whatever. That opens it up to being subjective. And that is, you know, there's no other right. Again, this is the Second Amendment. This is in the Bill of Rights. Like, we wouldn't have a country if all the states did not agree to the Bill of Rights. You can't just have it be arbitrary. Either you pass the test to become a gun, you know, be able to purchase a gun, or you don't. You can't pass the test and then have the government say, well, you can only use it in your home, you can't take it out. So again, very clear. And what the opinion basically said was, look, states, you can do whatever you want, but you have to apply it to everybody. It can't be, okay, everyone has to jump this high to be able to purchase a weapon, but if you want to take it out of your home, you got to jump this other hurdle. That's not how it works. It's got to be one rule for everybody in the state. And this is the end of democracy. You got people on TV saying they're afraid to walk into Times Square now. Like, when's the last time there was a mass shooting where someone had a concealed carry permit? Probably the guy in Vegas. I don't know if he had a concealed permit, but I know he had permits for a lot of those. You know, they were legally purchased weapons.
A lot of concealed carry licenses are they own guns very well. They're law-abiding citizens.
Exactly. And you know, I'm a citizen of Maryland. It's virtually impossible. Like, they come up with this in New York, you have to show like just reason to be able to defend yourself. Just think about how absurd that is. You have to have a just reason to be able to defend yourself. Either you can defend yourself or you can't defend yourself. But in Maryland, you have to handle $10,000 or more in cash on a daily basis, or be a business owner, all this other crap. But pretty much you have to be the Pope to get a concealed carry permit in Maryland. It's effectively a backdoor. No, you can't have concealed. You can't have a right to carry in Maryland. Meanwhile, next door in Virginia, they've had right to carry, what they call a shall issue situation for decades. I mean, are there a million mass shootings in Virginia? Are we having is Richmond more dangerous than Baltimore? Nope.
No, not even
Is
close.
Richmond more dangerous than DC? And all these states that have all these like murders going on, these are all Democrat cities with these policies. These, you know, the most restrictive gun policies in the nation in Democrat states, and they're still having all this issue. So it doesn't even pass the smell test. Anyway, the point is, I'm getting off the track, but again, completely reasoned decision. Reasonable people can disagree on anything having to do with guns, but to frame this decision as though it is an attack on liberty when it's the exact reverse is, I just can't stand it. I can't stand seeing it. And the thing, it's not just seeing it, but I see a lot of people in what I do, and I always hear this stuff. barked back to me from people that are like true believers who aren't even paying attention to what's going on. I mean, you know, it's concerning because it works. It's like what I always say about Coca-Cola. The reason this propaganda is being pushed and pushed and pushed is because it works. They are convincing a lot of people of this. I just hope that there's more people that see through it than not. But you know, I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? I kind of talk for a lot, but
Well, fundamentally, I think that people don't understand, number one, what Roe v. Wade actually was, and that number two, abortion's always been really decided by states anyway. So, I mean, people just don't get that. So they think that this being overturned is, you know, going to be some like huge thing, because when you're back in, you know, high school, when you're taught like in civics and high school civics, you're taught Roe v. Wade was about abortion. Nobody else knows anything else, it seems like. So
yeah, and to a, again, I consider myself pretty well informed, and I didn't know about all the different laws on abortion in Europe. You know, like I had never even looked into it, and it just made me more upset because I'm like, wait a minute, are you telling me all these years I've been hearing about, you know, we got to be more like Europe, and like I don't think there's a country in Europe where you can get an abortion after 15 weeks. And again, if reasonable people can disagree, you know, if you bring up the whole, and again, not to get into it, but I'm just saying this is how dishonest they are, because they don't even allow this, what I'm about to say, to be said. You know, this example of, okay, someone who's a victim of rape doesn't want to carry the baby to term. Well, if abortion is legal up to 12 weeks, does that not solve that issue? I mean, wouldn't you know? I mean, I understand you can be pregnant and not know within 12 weeks. I've heard of stories, at least anecdotally. But I'm pretty sure that you know you've been raped, right? By 12 weeks, you probably know. You probably can go see a doctor. I mean, what I'm saying is, to say that what happened last week with this ruling means that women who were raped have to give birth to that's just not true. It's just not true. And they're saying these things to get people all stirred up and crazy. You know, and it's just it's horrible. It's so manipulative and dishonest. It's just,
You know, it's
astounding.
not as severe as they portray it to be. The reversal of Roe v. Wade and the people holding up the coat hangers. You know, nobody's going to be using a coat hanger anytime soon. I mean, you can just drive over to the neighbor's state if you need to. I mean, it's more of an inconvenience than anything.
And the thing is, and like what Desiree said was absolutely right. I mean,
sorry, my cat's so loud. It's my cat. He's fucking bitching about something.
I thought that was Mike's chair.
Yeah, I thought that was my chair. So listen, a lot of people, you know, I take this stuff very seriously, and I don't talk about it if people don't want to talk about it. I'm not the kind of guy that brings it up at parties and at the dinner table, because I know a lot of people find talking about this stuff distasteful, whatever. But I see a lot of people now, and again, friends of mine that are on Facebook that are having friends of theirs say, like, you know, if you believe in such and such, just defriend me because I hate you, and you know, just putting out these general things, and all this rancor that's going on. It is important, and again, I'm not like an I told you so person, but I have been talking about this for years. It's like it does get real at a certain point. Like it does have real world consequences. This isn't just like, you know, the old adage, like you can ignore you know, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you, is very true. And we are reaping the results of years of this being ignored by a lot of people. And you know, people's blood pressure's up, family members are fighting, friends are fighting, you know what I mean? This stuff has real effects. And it's all just a lack of honesty and a lack of critical thinking. It's all preventable and it's all fixable. But yeah. I just have a feeling it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
No, I just noticed on Facebook, a lot of people have always liked to virtue signal on Facebook and to jump on any bandwagon. But like they'll post something publicly to say I'm with the cause, but it's not to invite civil discourse. Like I've seen, you know, I've been unfriended. I've seen people get unfriended and get, you know, personally attacked for disagreeing with somebody. And it's like, are you just throwing it out there to throw out there? Or like you don't assume that somebody amongst your 100 friends might disagree with you? And why is that a bad thing? Like, do you want to have a conversation about this, or you just want to like throw up your flag? It's like, okay, you know, I'd rather post pictures of my kids at this point because you don't want to step on a landmine. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I mean, it's almost like that's what they're looking for. They want to like name names now.
Yeah.
They want to know where you stand.
The result of this relentless drumbeat and this narrative pushing and this propaganda is a dehumanization of the other. So what we're witnessing internally in our country is what we witnessed, and we're all familiar and remember when we were younger, during the Cold War, where it was like, you know, for better, for worse, you know, our culture, our media portrayed the Soviet Union as like, you know, damn dirty Reds, and they were like the worst people in the world, and they were going to kill everybody. And you know, it's a good way to get people willing to fight someone else, right? But now what we're dealing with is you've got it, people within our own country, we're being dehumanized to each other. So these people that are wanting everyone to defriend them, or you know, just shouting off at the mouth, hey, Desiree, or whatever, it's because there's people that say, oh, anyone that's a supporter of Donald Trump is a white supremacist, racist, fascist who wants everything to be the Handmaid's Tale, and is a, you know, jumping evangelical Christian maniac terrorist. So it's easy to dislike those people. It's a lot harder to have a problem with your brother or your uncle or your neighbor next door, you know. And again, this is done by people on the right as well, like, you know, well, they're just a lib hippie, you know, pot using, whatever. I mean, that's kind of like anachronistic at this point, but you get my point. I mean, it's not by accident. This stuff is done on purpose. It's not, you know, Jake Tapper isn't getting on there being like, you know what, I want to get on here, or Chuck Todd, or, you know, Stephanopoulos. They're not getting on TV and be like, I've done a lot of soul searching and I really want to have a conversation with America and really help them under. No, man, they know exactly what they're going to say. There's people writing it for them. They're like, this is the point we want to drive home, and this person is the bad guy, and these people are the good people. And if you have a problem, you need to fight these people over here. Like this is all orchestrated. There's nothing by chance about
the scary part for me. There's two sides, and it's roughly 50-50, maybe 51-49. But when one side gets the upper hand, and in terms of the media, the newspapers, Hollywood, and then in the DOJ and FBI, this is where it starts to get scary. When what you were saying about the DOJ is not prosecuting people that are protesting outside the judges' houses. They're kind of picking and choosing who they're prosecuting, who they're going after. They're kind of weaponizing the FBI and the DOJ. A lot of this seems to be, they're just kind of fishing for information. They'll stop and detain somebody. They want to take their cell phone and their computer, or they'll go and search somebody's house. They don't really seem to know. They don't have the evidence already. They don't know for sure what they're looking for, but they just want to get your phone and your computer, see if they can find something on there that's bad. It's kind of like what's going on with Trump in New York, where he's being prosecuted by the state of New York for his business dealings, and they don't really have anything on him at the moment, but they're trying to get, they have a subpoena for his phones and his computers, and he's not turning them over, and they're like fining him $10,000 per day until he turns them over, and he's like appealing this, and it's just going on and on, but they don't have anything. They just want to get the phone to see what's on there, either to embarrass him or to find something that's they think is questionable. So it's they're using the courts and the DOJ, FBI as they're weaponizing these agencies, and that's what's scary to me.
Yep, and the fact that it's a cultural shift. You know, there used to be a time. You know, it's like you would expect. If you met an FBI agent, or in my case, when I was younger, you know, when you met someone whose dad was an FBI agent, they might as well be like Superman or Batman. Like that was like, what? That's got to be so cool. Like you get to shoot Russians, and I mean, the FBI was internal, but anyway, you get to do all this cloak and dagger stuff, whatever. Now it's like I honestly, if someone introduced themselves to me and said I'm an FBI agent, I'm not super impressed. Like it doesn't have the glow that it had years ago, because I'm like, no, that's cool. I'm sure you're smart, but I don't know, man. I mean, you guys do a lot of shady stuff. I don't know, And that, again, this gets back to the whole thing where, like, when we talked about elections and all that stuff, when you can shut someone down and you can cancel them and you can do all this stuff, but what you can't do is rid the damage that's done when people lose trust and faith in the process and in the system. That's the cancer. The fact that I just said what I said about meeting an FBI agent, and I'm like, kind of the blooms off the rose. That's a cancer. That's horrible. That's really bad. It wasn't always that way, And again, this stuff it leads to bad places, when you can't trust people anymore.
Yeah, I think my reaction to meeting the FBI agent wouldn't be, well, I'm not impressed. It would be, I'm scared now.
Yeah, good one. Even better. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, well, I've got a Facebook presence and I do a podcast with my friends and my politics is out there. It's like, oh, wow, now I'm meeting this FBI agent. You know what I mean? There's, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I'm curious, Mike or Tom or Desiree, has anybody like been following the hearing enough to know, like, I remember having some interest in it because I thought maybe if Jim Jordan had made it on there or the other Republican that was interested, maybe we would know more about the FBI's role in what actually happened at the Capitol, because there was certainly like some inclination, some clues that that
they didn't get invited to the hearings. It's just Liz Cheney and like one.
No, I mean, have they even explored or revealed any of that cloak and dagger stuff, or is it all?
Yes, some, and well, I don't know about the FBI connection, but and forgive me, I can't remember if it's. I think it's the House Republicans have done and are pretty much wrapped up their own independent investigation of what happened on January 6th from a let's try to prevent this from happening again standpoint, which is what the one that we're seeing, the show trial, is purported to be, but it's not, because they're not asking actual questions that would help us. So anyway, the point is, yes, there was another investigation. They have released some findings, and from the last thing I heard is they're speeding up the release of that to kind of counter this tidal wave of bullshit that we're getting on a daily basis from the J6 committee. I mean, you've got a committee, they keep saying it's bipartisan. There's no minority representation, the Republicans being the minority in the House right now. Right. There's no minority representation. The minority leader, who's McCarthy, put forth, I think, was it like Lee Zeldin and Jim Jordan and some other guys to be on the committee? Because when you have a select committee, you have the majority leader pick some people from their party, the minority leader picks some people from their party, the chairman's typically from the majority party, but then the minority leader also has an elevated position over just the regular members, and there's a back and forth. There's the chairman kind of directs it, and then the minority has a say back and forth, and it's a healthy, kind of,
that would be
resembles
fair.
It resembles kind of like a courtroom thing, but it's not litigious. Anyway, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, rejected McCarthy's appointments from the Republicans, so the Republican Party has no representation on this committee, and she picked Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, who are both like rabid, and here I am using some rhetoric, rabid anti-Trumpers. And whatever, everyone can have their own opinion, but you're not getting a cross section of
Not at all.
viewpoints, and there's no one on that committee that's going to stand up and ask questions like I just did earlier, like where's the testimony from the 2 Secret Service agents that were in the limo? They interviewed them. The guys' names are known, and they were interviewed by the committee. So where's their testimony? Wouldn't that be like a bombshell? Or maybe what this lady heard was wrong. But we don't get to think about that, because right now on CNN, on their headline, on their page, it's, Trump, whatever, blah, 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 testimony, reporting it as though it's factual. There's no one to stand up and counter it or say, like, is that really what you heard? And
well, as far as the end game for this hearing, these hearings, right? I mean, the idea, I think, Mike, the whole point of it is basically to do what the second impeachment did not do, right? Just to prevent him from running again.
100%. That's exactly what that is. The goal is they're trying to get people, the thing with Trump, no matter what they throw at him, his base sticks with him, and they're trying to shake that, and they're trying, and they haven't been able to. So now they're trying to just like quasi legally disqualify him from running.
Yeah, because they're afraid.
They're super afraid of him.
Well, what's funny is you talked about the Supreme Court decisions that came out this week. I mean, they're basically using all of those issues to galvanize the voters for November, because they have nothing else that Biden has done to run on. I mean, everything else sucks.
Exactly. And
so it's almost like, if you're a conservative and you're pro-life and you're pro-Second Amendment and you're pro, religion or whatever, you're a religious person, you look at what the Supreme Court did in a week, and, you silently wave your pom-poms, right? But at the same time, the timing for this, it's giving them something to drum up all this fear about. I mean, that's the one thing that concerns me as a, someone who's a Republican who leans conservatively, is like they had nothing to run on before, and now they're going to scare the shit out of the masses. Now on the one hand, the one thing that we have as conservatives going for us is most of the people who are screaming right now, the liberals, are already in New York, California, Washington, Portland. Like, they were going to win those places anyway. Like, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have these tweener states, like the ones that Trump, lost in 2020, and they're trying to drum up support there. And then obviously the Roe v. Wade issue scares me, because I think that what they're trying to do is at least specifically get women to come out. And even if they were thinking about how much they don't like Biden, they might look at the constitutional, like if you view the right to abortion as a woman's constitutional God-given right, then you might go to the ballot box with that in mind, because you're blaming Trump for the justices. You know what I mean?
No, and I agree. And here's the thing. And if again, not even getting into should we have abortion legal or not legal, if I am again trying to take the side of, say, a reasonable Democrat voter who's appalled because they think that this right has been lost or whatever, my gut feeling is that the vast majority of those people are not for having abortion legal up to 40 weeks. Just my gut feeling.
Right.
My gut feeling is most reasonable people would say 12 weeks, 15 weeks, whatever, 20, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Let's follow the science.
That's in the polls.
That's in the yeah. So I think that's kind of where a lot of these states are gonna end up. But that's not what the party is talking about. The Democrat Party, they just had I can't remember what the bill was about ending or not allowing I'm sorry, abortion up to, past birth. So if you want to have an abortion and you're about to give birth, you want to have an abortion, but the baby's born alive, but you can still kill it, right? This is what they were talking about in Virginia. Yep. Every single Democrat in the House of Representatives voted for that, except for Manchin.
It's crazy.
right.
So if the baby can't survive, and that's your reasoning, what about a 1-year-old?
Correct.
No, they're talking about like a 40-weeker born.
They're talking about a 40-week-year-old, like
I know, but
10
what
minutes
about 1
before.
year after it's born?
Well, that's what I'm
Nice.
saying.
Still can't survive on its own. So
Exactly.
is it
And-
okay to kill it?
Well, that's what Alito got into, because he said in 92 when Casey, which again that's really when Roe was overturned, because Roe was put into the inferior position. Casey took precedent. You know, the measure was viability, and one of the things Alito got into was like, so if you're saying it's viability, so are we saying up till 18 months? I mean. It's like what, and again, it's hard. It's, no, that's crazy. But just this, within the last year, we've had, you know, all the members save one of the House of Representatives on the Democrat Party side say yes. They want that.
Yeah.
So
that's where they blew it.
But then, if you're against that, you're against abortion. And again, this is the rhetorical Chinese finger trap they get you in, because what you're talking about isn't actually what you're talking about. Like what they're talking about isn't what everyone else is talking about.
This is like the trans thing we talked about last week. If you're,
I was about to say that.
if all you say is, okay, put the brakes on, don't go through with the surgery too quick, then you're against you're transphobic. No, it's just saying, and it's the same thing with pro-choice. You can be pro-choice up to a limit, like I am. You know, I'm pro-choice, but I'm not. I don't want to see like, 1 week before the baby's born, the doctor just jabbing it with a stick and killing it.
Well, also, then with the transgender, it's almost like they pushed the envelope too far. Like an inch was given and a mile was taken, or at least attempted to. Because even the transgender issue, if you ask me, to respect somebody who's transgender, to make sure that they can get a job if they want it, not to discriminate against them in that fashion, and to make sure that they're protected under the law, equal opportunity for everybody, I'm all for it.
100%.
I'm all for that. But when it comes to like transing kids, and when it comes to the entire Department of Education, basically instructing the NEA, et cetera, to sort of have that pervade the schools from kindergarten to 4th grade, I kind of put the brakes on. And then also, I got to have sympathy for women. I don't know if I was a woman, if I would want them to have the same access to the spa and the ladies' room and the ladies' locker room. And I that's what I mean. Like, why do you have to go to that point where then you say the people who disagree with those aspects of it, oh, they're a bunch of troglodytes and they're a bunch of they're going to bring out the pitchforks and the torches for the transgender people. You know what I mean? It's not when it's not the case at all. It's ridiculous. Like, I don't know why do they go to these extremes? And does everybody really feel that way? Like you said, Mike, I mean, is that possible? Or is it just in Portland and Seattle and California and New York?
Yeah, because they won't couch it that way. And they won't say, the Democrat Party and the media are not going to come out and say,
common sense,
like, okay, what we want is we want to be able to have abortion up to 40 weeks. This is what we're talking about. They won't come out and say that because they know people are going to be like, hell effing no, but that's what they're pushing. So again, if you can't be honest with what you're actually pushing, there's a disconnect there. And I think people they see it, they're getting wise to that. I think the vast majority of Americans are incredibly reasonable, people. I mean, I know, another thing I've always noticed is it seems like people that are more on the left seem to not trust their fellow citizens. But, I trust my fellow citizens as in total to be reasonable. I think there's middle ground here, or not even middle ground. I think there's like reason, but Roe v. Wade put the kibosh on that in 1973. We weren't allowed to have a conversation anymore. It was de facto. You couldn't outlaw it no matter what, before 20 weeks. And in the last 50 years, that's been pushed to 40 weeks. That's the net result of the last 50 years. And finally, people were like, if it stayed at 20 weeks, first trimester, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's right. And like you said, like right after the opinion got leaked, if I recall, they rushed a bill through to the Senate where they actually asked for what you just mentioned, where they wanted abortion through 40 weeks. And they blamed it on a filibuster for not passing, but there never was a filibuster. It was the majority. And what happened was Senator, what's his name, Manchin again. Manchin said if they wanted to codify Roe v. Wade, I was all in.
Right.
He said I would.
40 weeks isn't Roe v. Wade.
Right.
Roe v. Wade was 20 weeks.
Right. Exactly. And so he didn't have the stomach for it.
Yeah.
And he's a Democrat, and he's, you know, remember we did a whole podcast called Joe Manchin Saves the World, I think.
I know.
When it came to build back better, and I guess he had a hand in this as well, but you don't hear that publicized.
I don't know if that would work anyway, because you'd have to do a constitutional amendment. Because if you just pass a law,
well, I think
and then
that's
the court looks at it and says, okay, that's not constitutional, then it gets tossed out.
I just remember they tried to do it. I remember they tried to do something, and Manchin wouldn't play ball.
But the state legislatures can do what they want. I mean, that's the other thing that no one's talking about. Basically, what Alito's decision said is, if Massachusetts wants to make it, you know, codify it and all the way up to the time of birth, the Supreme Court's not going to do anything about it.
Right.
So, Desiree, just out of curiosity, what's your, you know, from your perspective, with just getting back to the, you know, what I find interesting, like the women's, you know, classical feminism versus this trans issue. Like, what's your feeling on all that stuff?
Are you asking me because I'm a woman?
Yeah.
In what fashion? What do you
Well,
mean?
so like what Jack was saying, I mean, like I don't have any issue with trans people, and we've been talking about this for years. I mean, I've known some, I don't have any problem with it. But when it starts getting into the point where like I have to say that they are a woman and that they can, you know, that my 80-pound daughter is competing on a soccer team with a 150-pound, you know, guy who was a guy 3 weeks ago, I do have a problem with that. You know, as far as like, you know, guys going into locker rooms or what. I mean, to me, if I was a woman, I'd be like, why am I having to shoulder all this? Like, this guy, like, here's these guys being chauvinist again. It's like, well, I just feel like I want to be a woman, so I'm coming into your bathroom now. Like, well, isn't that male chauvinism writ large, like under a different name?
Yeah, it is. First of all, I'm not a feminist, so sorry, there's that opinion. You're not going to get that from me. But I mean, I feel like, you know, whatever people, if you want to go buy a fucking watermelon or, you know, a blue cloud today, I don't care what you go buy. But the fact is, if you have a penis, you're going into the male bathroom. Like, I don't really give a shit. You don't care. I mean, because it's just like that kid that was in the school going to the girls. Sorry, my cat is freaking out right now.
That's all right.
Going into the girls' bathroom and raped those girls. Like, just because I'm sure, I don't want to say I'm sure, but like, you know, who's to say that guy just didn't like drum up that fucking thought and was like, oh, I'm just going to go buy trans. That way I can just go my way into the girls' bathroom whenever I damn well please. You know, I mean, that's not, at some point, you got to be like, okay, this person's decision, like, is their decision and this is how they're going to live their life. But up until that point, and I don't know what that point should be, but up until that point, it's like, who's to say you're not just fucking blowing shit out your ass right now? Like, what?
No, and my thing is like, why is it that we're in this mindset where that person's quote unquote rights or feelings trump yours? Right. So aren't we equal in this world? Like, so, you know, this person over here is like, I was born a guy, but now I'm a woman. I want to go into your restroom. You're like, wait a minute, I'm a woman. I don't want you to come in. Well, why? Okay. Doesn't that need to be adjudicated somehow? Why is it that this person gets to trump this person? You know, and it seems like.
And also, who's bringing the issue? Who's bringing the issue? Is it some person that wants to be woke and is trying to make laws right for everyone? Or is it actually the trans people that really give a fuck where they go to the bathroom?
It's usually,
you know, that's the other question I have.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I have a niece that she was at one point a trans female to male, and that issue never even came up. Like, no one cares where you go to the bathroom. Most of the time they've got unisex bathrooms anyway, so go in that.
Yeah. But I think the sports thing, the sports teams things really galvanized a lot of people.
Again, the sports thing too is, I feel like, is only really an issue up until a certain point. I mean, if you're a 7-year-old on a soccer team. I mean, it doesn't really matter your strength, because if you are really truly like living as a woman, you're not out there conditioning, hitting the fucking gym and the weights and, you know, all the time. You're not doing that. And even as to say, there are women that do that too. There's some fucking ripped women out there that you're just like, whoa, I don't want to play anything against you because you're going to win.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think it just depends on that one. I mean, there was that one case where, well, that one UFC fighter that's trans. I think that she fights as a woman.
Yeah, she broke a woman's orbital socket or something like that.
Yeah, and is that to say, well, she did that because she is like biologically a man? I don't know. Maybe she just hits the iron. I don't know.
Well,
but
also,
I don't know.
I think where it becomes like a fiscal issue is in college sports, where these people are taking scholarships away from people born as women who are competing.
On that note, Mike, I heard this week that Biden's pushing to expand Title IX to include trans athletes as well. So that's going to definitely have an effect on women's scholarships and the like.
It's the end of women's collegiate sports.
Yeah.
It's that if you're the coach and you knew that person was trans, or even if you knew that they're trans, I don't think that you should be able to give them a scholarship. I mean, that should not even be a thing that you ask when looking at the ability of the person to play the sports, regardless of their gender. Right. I mean, because like I said, women can be just as strong and just as, athletic as men can be. But I mean, the issue comes if and there's all sorts of scandals out there. What if there's some like families out there that are just raising their sons as women so they can get into some college for free? I don't know.
It's not just that.
I think it's a biological fact, though. If you look at the numbers in black and white, men are physically going to dominate those sports. We've already seen it. I mean, it's muscle fibers, it's testosterone, it's size, it's bone density. It's just a fait accompli. I mean, at this point,
on average.
And if you, I've seen interviews with female athletes, both at the high school and the college level, that have had to deal with this issue, and they're just getting stomped. Records are being broken. I mean, this is something that we know. So if you're going to expand Title IX to include male to female athletes and make that a thing, or let's put it all the way up to professional level. Let's say you do it in the WNBA. Okay.
The end of the WNBA.
I mean, that's going to be every record. Like, I mean, I just, that's going to happen. I mean, and so it does have implications for who gets the scholarships, who makes the team. And then God knows how colleges try to accommodate in terms of locker rooms and things like that. Like, I don't know how all this stuff started. Like, I don't know when this became the thing. I remember when LGBT was really just LGB, and the advocacy was for gay marriage, which I was all for. And people who argued against it said, "Oh, it's a slippery slope. What's going to come next?"
We're way down the slope now.
I mean, and now it's just like, oh Jesus, and so people get fired up about it. At the end of the day, like I said, I'm whatever you want to do, like Desiree said, you want to, if you're a wolf spirit animal, or you're half mask, that's another thing I've heard now, like partly masculine, female, cisgender.
What that meant.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, I just have an issue with all the TikTok influence on the kids, because now, like, they say, like, the number of people that in the young age group that are now LGBTQAI plus whatever, it's gone from like 15% to like over 40.
Right, because there's a lot.
We just used to call that a tomboy.
Yeah, no, tomboys are.
Apparently, there's a title for it now. I don't know.
Well, no, but the problem is tomboys are being confused and influenced, and now they want to actually like perform surgery on themselves, and that becomes a problem.
Yeah, the whole surgery thing is, especially for children, I just can't. I will never get with that. That's just
puberty.
I don't like the term, the gender affirming.
Yeah,
they changed it from gender changing because they didn't want to say change because they thought that was your original gender to start with, so they called it affirming. I think it should be called gender surgery. You need to put the word surgery in there. You can't just, because affirming sounds too soft, and it sounds like you're just agreeing that it's
well,
okay.
yeah, but yeah, gender affirming also like covers the fact that we're talking about like, you know, chemical castration drugs and
Yeah. That's, you
know,
need to say surgery. Just
yeah.
saying the
Well,
word
it's not
affirming.
all surgery. Doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah, a lot of
You
them
can take the hormones without surgery. I mean, that's just
right.
the end user,
Do you
thing. But
do you think
Right,
these
a lot of
people
them don't get the bottom surgery. That's true, Desiree.
do you think people who have these surgeries, and I don't know, do you think they have to sign waivers and
Sure.
paperwork to not sue the doctor at a
Yeah.
well,
later
everyone
time?
has to every surgery go under. Well,
Really?
not sue them, but I mean, if there's malpractice, it doesn't matter.
Not
Yeah,
malpractice.
there's informed consent. Yeah.
Right.
You knew what you were signing up for. You knew that you go in as a woman and you come out as a man,
So-
and there's no going back.
So
Right.
how does a minor can't sign a contract? You know, how is a minor
but their
having
parents
informed
can.
consent? I know, but
Yeah.
then
The
they
thing
can sue
about
the
this,
parents?
I don't
But the
think that
parents
the
don't
minors
even
are
have
having
to be involved.
surgery. That's all hormone therapy that the minors are doing.
Right, which is terrible because it's got permanent effects.
Very,
Yeah.
yeah, especially if you
Yeah.
take a woman to a man, it's very
There's
detrimental
surgery
to the
for the
developing
minors
person.
as well.
There has been surgery on minors.
Yeah,
Hmm.
no, it's nuts. It's nuts. And then, yeah, well, back to the issue at hand. I mean, clearly there are enough issues that are dividing people in this country, but you know, I have to agree with Mike. Just having watched, you know, just watching the news as we all do, even just casually, there's definitely, you're getting one side. I think that was your larger point, right, Mike? I mean,
Not just one side. You're getting fed, you're being directed, you are being manipulated. It's again, this is beyond partisanship. There's a purpose behind this, right? Just before we go, let me just show this graph or this map here.
yeah.
Oh, you guys can't see my cursor. I just found this enlightening, and I know you can't really read it, but the countries in red are the countries that have laws that allow abortions to the latest in, I believe it's up to 40 weeks. I can't read this where it's red, but anyway, so it's like the US, Canada, Vietnam, Laos, North Korea, China. I think there's like 2 others, like 7 countries that fall into this in the entire world. But if you were to look at American media in the last 5 days, you're never going to see this graph.
Right.
Okay. So all these other countries in yellow, blue have more restrictive abortion laws than US states do right now after the repeal of Roe v. Wade. This repeal didn't outlaw anything. It didn't outlaw it. What it did is it gave power to states to outlaw it if they want to, but it didn't outlaw anything. So anyway, I'm just saying this is, you know, for all the talk of, oh my God, we're going back in the dark ages. Look at Europe. All these people looking down their nose. I'm hearing, you know, Macron and all these guys saying how horrible it is. We have more liberal laws on abortion than they do.
Yeah. And then, yeah, now you're hearing all these celebrities saying they're going to move to another country. It's
Yeah,
like,
where are they going to move? It's going to be more
Bye.
restrictive.
yeah, bias, right, Desiree.
So, and again, I'm not even making the argument about Roe v. Wade or what's right or what's wrong. I'm saying, why isn't this map at the beginning of Lester Holt's NBC World News Tonight?
Because no one gives a shit about what everyone else is doing. It's what we're doing.
But if it was about informing people and giving people perspective about what really went on here or what's going on here, it just seems like it's an important piece of information.
I think what's happening, it's a very small tail in terms of the number of people that's wagging a very large dog.
Yeah.
Even on the Democratic side, like you talked about, most of them don't want these late-term abortions, but the very small minority is just too vocal about it, and they're like pulling everybody else with them.
So what does the overturning of Roe v. Wade do to the Casey decision?
And they overturned Casey as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was part of it. So
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a state issue now.
When when Roe v. Wade was overturned, what surprised me when the protests started that Biden didn't come out. Well, I guess it didn't surprise me, but I'm going to point this out. To be a president, he should have came out and said, let's stay peaceful. We respect the court's decision. Let's be peaceful. Go in peace, like somebody else once said. Why didn't he say something like that?
Right, because they don't want that. They want, look, there are these people that are getting stirred up and manipulated to turn this into an emotional issue and view people that disagree with them as being the other. They want that pressure. They want that. They want these people in front of the Supreme Court Justice's house. I mean, this is for another podcast, like what the reason is. I just want people to really appreciate that we are in the paradigm is shifted. We are in uncharted territories. Sorry.
Should we say where abortion is actually legal right now or illegal, or what the actual reality of all this is?
Yeah, do you have that info in front of you?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So currently, as of Roe v. Wade being overturned, abortion is absolutely illegal in only 8 states. Those are Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Utah, Georgia, Idaho. No. Yeah. Not Idaho.
That's 100%.
100%, 0 weeks. That's 0 weeks. So no abortion, period.
Okay.
And then there's,
that was quick.
It says ban or severe restrictions. So this is so here in Kansas, we're under the ban or whatever, or severe restriction soon. So we're going to have on our
severe,
vote.
Though?
So a lot of these are saying like 15 weeks. There's like going to be trigger laws, certain type of I don't know, just like things that stand in your way between getting an abortion and not, I guess. But each state's different. So
but 15 weeks is not severe. So that's what Mike was leading.
Well, 15 weeks is most of Europe, correct?
Severe would be you can get an abortion but only if it's rape or incest or something like that, or back to the baby.
Okay, so some of these say trigger laws will take effect 30 days after Roe v. Wade. Trigger laws will take effect in July. I don't know if the trigger law is going to be the Republican
or just
I don't know,
quote severe.
Severe. Republican governor will likely try to pass a full ban. I don't feel like that's severe, whatever. Anyway, so there's a lot of states under this category. Under this category, we have Mississippi, Idaho, like I said earlier, North Dakota, Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, which is surprising, West Virginia, Wyoming, Arizona, Florida, Indiana, Iowa. And then it starts with threatened, which I feel like that's the same thing, like, because it says like the same stuff under those categories, like 15 weeks, 6 weeks, under threatened. And I think it more has to do with whether your state government is GOP controlled.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the day after pill, is that like considered abortion? Or
the Plan B? No, but there is medication that you, for example, so you can take a medication that will, you can with the prescription. It depends. I think on that states are different too, depending on, minor's access and if you need a prescription or if you don't need a prescription or whatever. But the thing with the Plan B is it's only going to work within a certain amount of time. Right. Like if you conceive, you take that bad boy within 3 days, it will do something. And if you don't, if you take it 2 weeks later, it's not going to do anything. So, I feel like that's a little bit versus like there are medications that will induce an abortion. Doesn't matter what, how far along the pregnancy is.
Well, isn't the Plan B pill, didn't that used to be called the morning after sex pill? Like
the morning after pill. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's you kind of know that going into it. If you're going to have casual sex, then within a day.
Yeah, the thought behind it is, oh, whoops, oopsie doopsie, better go to the Walgreens.
Right.
That's the theory behind that one, but yeah, it's
so
not
sorry, I wasn't counting, but how was that still less than 50% of the states?
Well, it seems like some of those states, they're basically just assuming because it's a GOP controlled state, there's going to be,
exactly.
yeah, so that's
they're just saying
meaningless.
threatened.
Yeah, or well, some of them were threats, like the governor said, I will do this, or the legislature did. But I don't know if it necessarily means every GOP controlled legislature is going to say we're banning abortion.
Yeah, for example, Alaska, there's abortion's 100% legal, and they're a GOP controlled government.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
So I mean, I don't know.
Seems
I mean, I think
arbitrary.
over time, and what I like about this decision and wish it happened a long time ago, is GOP, not GOP, Democrat controlled, whatever state it is, it's the powers to the people, right? It's legislative process. So, I mean, personally, if I had a crystal ball, I'd say, you know, there's going to be states that react right away. I think there were 26 that had trigger laws. Now, not trigger laws.
What's a trigger law?
A trigger law. A trigger law is when a state said that, you know, we can't do this right now because of Roe v. Wade. But if Roe v. Wade is ever overturned, this law immediately comes into effect, and these are new abortion laws. So anything that would restrict under 20 weeks, anything that would restrict under 20 weeks.
Right.
So there's 21 states that abortion currently is 100% legal, and it doesn't matter. There's not going to be a vote in the fall, nothing. It's going to be legal, and it's going to stay like that.
And some people, again, some of these states that where it's totally legal, as this gets discussed, may become a little more restrictive. Some that are super restrictive may loosen it. Some may be totally can't have any abortions at all. Some may allow it up to 40 weeks. That's called democracy.
Right.
That's the beginning of democracy.
That is a republic, right? That's a healthy government at work, basically, the way it was designed.
And there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you count DC, but 5 states that actually allow abortion up to 40 weeks. Up to 40 weeks.
Oh, up to 40 weeks.
Only 5 out of the 21 allow that currently.
Right. Probably New York, California, DC. Maybe Jersey.
California, no, actually, surprisingly, California is a defeated liability.
Wow. I guess we lost Tom.
We lost Tom. So I guess we'll.
So let me leave you with this. Talking about misinformation. So they're on the old Ticker Talker. There is a creator he did a video about the abortion laws and, you know, where it's going to go from here kind of thing. But, you know, looking at this, somebody that's not going to go out and do their own research is going to maybe think that this is actually truth. And I can't really show it to you, but I can, let me just kind of, it's basically a guy that's saying, this 13-year-old girl was raped or whatever. This is the scenario. 13-year-old girl was raped and she goes in to get a rape kit. And the nurse is like going through and doing the rape kit or whatever, asking her the questions. And it goes into basically like, so at the, you're consenting to the fact that you're gonna not leave. If you want to leave the state, you have to have a written consent from, you know, such and such like law, a body of law. If you return to the state, and you will be required to undergo a transvaginal ultrasound, and if you are not pregnant at the time that you re-enter the state, there will be investigations on you to see if you actually got an abortion or if you actually got had a miscarriage. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah, which that's not happening.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But that's the skit in this.
Wow.
So it's totally made up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this is just the fear mongering type.
Yeah, I mean, who would agree? What legislature would pass it? I'll tell you what legislature would pass that. One that would get completely voted out of office the next election.
Right.
By any, I mean, look, the majority of people in this country, I feel safe in saying, would be okay with some sort of middle ground on this.
Yeah, like
or even restrict, like not even middle, maybe even more to whatever, but they sure as hell ain't for having an abortion at 40 weeks and going further than that. And again, if this issue hadn't been pushed to that limit, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. It's like when you go to borrow your dad's car and then you take it outside and drive 180 miles an hour around the Beltway. It's like, probably not going to get to use the car again.
No, exactly. It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, guys, this has been great, but we lost Tom and we already don't have Zeus. So I think we've been on for a while now. I think it might be time to
wrap it up.
Yeah. Hey, everybody who watched, thanks for watching the Friends of Zeus podcast, and we'll be back another time.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.